Hi, it's Irene Weinberg, and welcome to the Grief and Rebirth podcast. Before we get started with the episode, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching so you never miss an episode. Every week, we share heartfelt stories, spiritual insights, and practical guidance to help you navigate grief and trauma, find hope, and discover rebirth after loss. By subscribing, you'll get access to every episode and join our supportive community on this journey. Thanks for being here, and let's dive in.
Hi again, everyone. I'm Irene Weinberg, host of the internationally acclaimed Grief and Rebirth podcast. I'm also a thought leader featured in the revolutionary documentary Every Soul Knows, a film that dives deep into consciousness, the soul's journey, and our shared spiritual evolution, alongside some of today's most inspiring visionaries. Through Grief and Rebirth podcast, I have had the honor of speaking with more than 400 remarkable healers, experts, and survivors. But my own path began with a profound spiritual awakening after a devastating loss, an experience that cracked me open and set me on a mission to help people understand that death is not the end and that healing, reconnection, and renewed purpose are always within reach. After a decade of exploring grief and transformation, I realized how much deeper the healing goes when we're in it together. That's why I've created SoulYOUtions, helping humanity heal. It's a live, interactive space where we move beyond listening and step into real connection. With an incredible team of intuitives and holistic practitioners, we offer what I call the evolved view, guidance and insight to help people turn pain into purpose and navigate life's toughest transitions. Last week's uplifting interview featured two of our very gifted SoulYOUtions panelists, numerology by Dale Spencer Weeks and medical intuitive Karen Wenzel. Be sure to listen to my fascinating interview with them. And this week, I could not be more delighted and truly proud to introduce you to two highly gifted intuitives who are cherished members of our SoulYOUtions panel. Christine Dollahan, PhD in transpersonal psychology, and Jess Spooner, who is a trauma specialist, an integrative healer, and the founder of Integral PTSD. Transpersonal psychology explores the intersection of psychology, spirituality, and consciousness, focusing on human potential, inner transformation, and experiences that transcend the ego. Christine both transmits people's soul histories from the Akashic records and brings a deeply integrative approach that bridges psychology, spirituality, intuitive insight, energy healing, and conscious awakening. Through her compassionate presence and profound intuitive abilities, Christine helps people reconnect with their soul's purpose, navigate life transitions, heal emotional and spiritual wounds, and embody greater alignment, empowerment, and inner transformation. Christine is also an internationally emerging voice in the fields of consciousness, spirituality, and transformational psychology. She has appeared on multiple podcasts and interview platforms. Her work resonates deeply with those seeking a grounded yet expansive bridge between psychology, mysticism, and the awakening process unfolding in our world today. She is also featured in the revolutionary documentary Every Soul Knows, and a powerful aspect of Christine's work is informed by her own extraordinary pre-birth experiences, which shaped her understanding of life, death, soul contracts, and the sacred nature of human existence from an early age. Alongside Christine is the extraordinary Jess Spooner, a trauma specialist, integrative healer, and the founder of Integral PTSD, a multi-dimensional healing approach that works with the nervous system, subconscious programming, energetic imprints, and the soul-level patterns that shape a person's lived experience. Rather than revisiting trauma stories, Integral PTSD focuses on clearing the underlying energetic and identity level blocks that keep trauma alive in the body and the psyche. Jess's method blends trauma-informed care, intuitive insight, somatic awareness, and energetic healing to address the deep emotional, psychological, and spiritual imprints that keep people stuck in cycles of fear, overwhelm, or disconnection. She has devoted her life to helping people move from crisis to clarity, from fragmentation to wholeness, and from survival mode into a life of meaning, vitality, and emotional freedom. Jess's clients describe her as deeply intuitive, grounded, and compassionate, a presence whose work continues to transform countless lives. Today, Christine and Jess will explore many powerful and important topics, such as the profound relationship between grief and trauma, how they intertwine, how they shape us, and how, when met with understanding and support, they can become catalysts for rebirth, renewal, and a return to wholeness. I know this conversation will touch your heart, lift your spirit, and inspire you to become part of the SoulYOUtions experience, a space where our panel comes together to offer heartfelt guidance, soulful insight, and compassionate answers to the questions you will bring to us. SoulYOUtions will premiere on September 30th. Stay tuned for more details. So now, I have the supreme pleasure of asking some questions of Christine and Jess to help you get to know them better and give you a taste of their impressive intuitive expertise and evolved wisdom. Hi there, and welcome to the International Award-winning Grief and Rebirth podcast. I'm your host, author, and trauma survivor, Irene Weinberg, here to support you wherever you are on your healing journey. Each week, I connect with leading grief and trauma experts, intuitive healers, mediums, and inspiring voices who share powerful stories of loss, resilience, and transformation. If you're searching for hope, meaning, and a path forward after loss or trauma, you're in the right place. Together, let's rediscover joy, healing, and the possibility of rebirth. Let's begin with you, Christine. So, Christine, hi. It's such a pleasure to see you. And Jess, too, really. This is wonderful. Christine, then Jess, could you each take us back to your early years? When did you first become aware of your intuitive gifts? And how did those early experiences shape the path you're each walking today?
Hi, Irene. First off, I want to say it's such a pleasure to be here with you and with Jess, and I'm so excited for this conversation. And I want all of your listeners to know that they're getting a very special gift in this episode as well, which is I've programmed this entire episode with some quantum energy healing. And so as you're listening and you're watching this, you're receiving healing and you're receiving a clearing as well. And this is going to be something that we'll offer to all of our listeners and all of our participants in the Solutions panel starting in September. So here you get a little bit of a preview of that. So I just wanted to all your
That's
listeners.
so wonderful, though. So everyone coming on to our SoulYOUtions events will be getting an extra healing, an energetic healing. That is very exciting.
Yeah, I think so. And in terms of your question, so how did I first become aware of my intuitive gifts? Well, I have something that people would call a pre-birth experience. And what does that mean? It means that I remember shortly before my birth as well as my actual birth. And I remember sort of, being with a mentor. I remember, very consciously coming into this lifetime. And I remember why I came into this lifetime, what my mission was here, which is precisely what I'm doing here at this moment, which is helping everybody remember that they have come from a, very similar place that I have come from, and, helping them remember why they're here. So I guess that's also why I've gotten this pre-birth experience. Now, you can listen to this. I'm not going to go into more depth about this. I talked about this at length in different,
By the
areas.
way, I interviewed Christine about, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. And in the group of interviews for Grief and Rebirth, you could find out about Christine's entire pre-birth experience, when she received it, what happened to her, and all of that. It's a fascinating interview.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a
Right.
fun interview
It
that we
was
had at
fun.
that
It was
time.
really
For sure.
interesting.
Yeah. And so that pre-birth experience is really, what sort of brought me on my path and what made me aware of my intuitive gifts. As a child, I remember having sort of long figures standing around my bed that I perceived as angels and as angelic presences. I also remember my grandmother specifically, who passed away when I was 1 year old, standing and being with me. I've always perceived her. She was sort of standing by my bed. And I remember I had a spirit cat, which actually at the time thought was actually a real cat, until I realized that cat was only I could see that cat.
Wow.
So I've had these experiences also throughout my childhood. Have had moments where I'm not sure if I was dreaming or in a like almost dream state. Was downloaded with wisdom, was visited by angelic beings and what I would call God, where I remember, past lives and the reasons of why I have past lives, and all with the sort of purpose to pass this on, not for myself, not because I'm, better than anybody else or anything like that, but really for the purpose of my, being here on planet Earth, which is to share this wisdom and to make other people believe, understand their own soul's journey and why they have come here. So, that's kind of my first remembrances and my first early years of remembering my gifts.
I'm so proud that you're going to be part of this, Christine, because you have so much wisdom, and people are going to be able to ask us questions on solutions that have to do with their lives. And you will have all this insight to be able to help them. It's wonderful. And Jess, your turn. Take us back. How did you become who you are today?
Yes, and thank you. I also want to say thank you for having me here, Irene, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this conversation here with you, Christine. So, looking back, mine was not as, I would say, profound or outright as Christine described, but I do recall being around 4 years old and having what I can only describe as, I was sleepwalking, but actually having an out of body experience. And I saw myself from above. And that's something that I can still see it clear as day right now. And that had happened a number of other times, like throughout my early childhood, as well as I used to have what are called precognitive dreams, where I would dream something. And then typically when we would go on vacation as a family or something, I would see the exact place that I had dreamed of, uh, without a doubt, and remember that that was in my dream. And so these types of little experiences opened my mind up to being so curious about the unknown, or what the supernatural, if you will. And so I've always been fascinated by that ever since I was young. And luckily, my family was very accepting of that type of thing, so I was able to explore it from a young age. And having their support led me to be able to intentionally begin to develop those skills. So it was in my early 20s, I would say, when I really began to develop them. And as I continued to grow, I found myself perceiving patterns through different types of experiences that are otherwise like non-ordinary experiences. Sometimes they're referred to as, or, not otherwise describable, but being able to, well, it drove me towards wanting to help people. Oh, I will say that I've always wanted to help people, and I realized that it was able to be a force to help people, and so that's
That's
kind of,
beautiful. It seems like all the things that happen in your life are like they're not random. In a way, they were invitations for you to do what you're doing today. But your path was a little different than Christine's, but still, right? So I love that you specialize in trauma because trauma is a big, who in this world hasn't had trauma? And I love that you'll be able to help people on solutions with their issues around trauma. So it's wonderful. And both of you work in multidimensional ways. Christine, what would you like to know, our audience to know about your healing specialties, how they support transformation, and what makes your work unique?
Yeah. So my work is transpersonal work. What that means is it's beyond the ego. It's kind of going beyond, our body and our mind, and it's going into, that we into our soul, our consciousness, right? The way that I work is I kind of combine multi dimensional healing modalities. Definitely an aspect of talking because that is also part of how we let go of energy, and we are energy at our core. We're frequency. Even our bodies are very low vibrating frequency. And so, there's definitely an aspect of coaching or consulting where we will talk about your, issues, your questions, or whatever else that you have throughout your journey. And then I combine that with something that I call quantum healing. It's a multidimensional sort of, I add Reiki in, I add a little bit of vortex healing in, and I add some spiritual response therapy and other charts which work directly with your Akashic records, your soul's journey. Also assuming that your soul is actually the eternal part of you that has been traveling through the universe, through, eons and eons and eons, and is just kind of jumping from one life experience into the next. So all of these we combine and we kind of work out what it is that bothers you, right? What issues you're working through, your soul's lessons, and then we take that into sort of the you know operating room, so to speak, and we clear it out and we carve it out and we heal it and we solve it up so that we can kind of take out the layers of domestication, take out the layers of all of the things that are clouding us so that we can understand who we truly are, at our core. And little spoiler, it's unconditional love. So that's kind of that's how I work.
Uh, Christine, if someone calls in with a question for solutions and they want to know how a past life has impacted their current issues, are you able to see that through the Akashic records?
It depends. If this, I will only see past lives if they pertain to the healing journey. So if it's important to your healing journey in this moment, let's say you have an incredible fear of flying and you don't know where it's coming from, but you have to fly frequently because that's how you make your money. Then it might be something that your spirit team or spirit guidance, because you have tons of people on the other side, people, beings, angels, all God force, all aspects of God on the other side helping you. And they might say, oh, it's really important for you to see why, this fear of flying came out. But I'm not going to see something just out of interest. If you want to know if you were an Indian in the past life and it doesn't pertain to, what you're doing at this lifetime and what you're healing, then I might not see that. So it really depends. It's really, I really give it up to your spirit guidance and what's for your highest good and love.
Which is exciting because you're actually getting guidance from people's spiritual beings who are all around them. So when they come through with a question, you kind of perceive all their community in a way.
Yes,
That's helping them from
correct.
the other side.
Correct.
Very cool.
I connect with your community, with your spirit team, and I'm basically the radio they speak through, and I give you the messages that you need in this moment to walk the most, the optimal path, and to free the most potential you have as a human being in this lifetime.
Wow, that's great. And Jess, I know that at the heart of your work is that every person deserves to be deeply seen, heard, and understood. So what do you want our audience to know about your healing specialties and how they support people to transform? And we've already been talking about what makes your work very unique. What else would you like to tell us about that?
Well, what I would like to share is that the work that I do as a trauma healing coach or trauma informed integrative health coach is it's deeply intuitive, and it's also I share a lot of my story and a lot of the trauma that I've I bring my personal experiences to the table when I work.
And how you've healed them, right? And how you
And how exactly, because my entire goal is to try to help people sidestep some of the like pathways that I've taken that have taken me longer to heal, right, in this lifetime, just because that was my path, but it's my wish to try to help people, not fast track healing, because you can't, there's no magic way to just snap your fingers and do that, but to act as a guide that's alongside the individuals that I work with, walking with them on their healing journey. And so really, Irene, you mentioned about being seen, heard, and understood. And you would be surprised how many people after years in therapy, which is usually when people wind up coming to me after they feel like therapy has failed. And I also used to work as a therapist and have decided to work primarily singularly as a coach and spiritual integration specialist, because when I went to my own coach after years in therapy, that's when I experienced a profound shift that it could have taken 20 more years of therapy, maybe, because it goes beyond just talking. And Christine mentioned the importance of talking. There's mind, body, and spirit is all encompassed in the work that I do with individuals.
Well, you use a very multidimensional approach. So it's not just one. It's just not just the entree without the appetizer and the dessert. You give them more of the full-bodied answer and situation, and help with their situation. That's really great. And we've talked about the Akashic records. Christine, can you just really briefly tell people, what are they? Are they a library in the sky wherever these records are for their lives? I mean, is soul information throughout time? Do you have librarians there? What exactly is it that you're able to access? What does that look like to you?
Sure. So, the way that I perceive the Akashic records is not specifically a place that we go to. It's not like a building somewhere in the sky that we go to. Although it often tends to be, depicted in that way. The way that I perceive it is as energy, and as I've mentioned, I think the best way to explain it to people is that we're energy on all of our levels of being. The most dense energy that we are currently inhabiting, if we're incarnated in our body, is our bodily energy, right? And then comes the mind, our thoughts, and our thinking, and our feelings and emotions, and then so on and so forth. So it goes from the most dense to the most subtle energy and frequency, right? And I just say that to help people understand how to perceive the Akashic records. So the most subtle is your soul, right? Is that idea of a soul, of a consciousness that travels through, from one lifetime to the next lifetime. And in each lifetime, there is, through relationships that you encounter with others, where you learn lessons about different topics, in the universe: love, forgiveness, kindness, compassion, cruelty, power struggles, jealousy, what have you. You just, continue the list. All of those are lessons that we will learn in relationship with others. And so the Akashic records is a sort of a frequency, is that frequency of consciousness that you take with you, that is being imprinted with everything that you've learned, both good and bad. So in some ways, you could imagine that a librarian goes in and says, oh, from this lifetime, you've taken an XYZ, right? The way that I work with it is not in a psychic way, although I will get some psychic information if it's pertinent and if it's important. So I might be seeing a past life if that is important for you to see. But the way that I really work with the Akashic records is healing them and clearing them out so that you can live your full potential. So you could also say I clear out the unconscious, consciousness that you're bringing with you, the little baggage packs. And all of us, honestly, are traveling through the universe with way too much baggage. I mean, imagine traveling to Europe with like 20, 25-pound bags. Anybody, would be overburdened. And, some travel with more, some travel with less. But a lot of that can make life difficult. It can make it feel like we're being blocked and all of that, when it's really just stuff we're taking in that we're meant to kind of throw out in this lifetime. And we can only throw that stuff out incarnated in this lifetime. And so
that's so interesting.
those are the Akashic records in a nutshell, right? It's really like what am I bringing in? What have I learned through the different life experiences? And what am I here to also heal and clear out and learn? And why I'm incarnated in this body and relating to the different people that I'm relating to, be it my family, my friends, and so on and so
It
forth.
sounds like you're a curiosity solver. People want to know, why am I experiencing this in this lifetime? Why did I get this person? How did I pick this? Did I really choose that person? And then you help them to identify the source of their wounds and what is going on or what has happened so that they can clear it and heal it. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
I would say that's pretty accurate. And I can tell you, I mean, sometimes I liken it to I'm going into the matrix and I just plug out some of the, cables that were plugged in that are not meant to be plugged in anymore. But of course, I'm not doing the work. You're doing the work. I'm just bringing it to your consciousness so that you can actively release it in your energetic body, right? And that's why the talking aspect is important, because often at times, people will come and be like, I don't know why I have these financial blocks. I've done every single affirmation I could. I'm, working 5 jobs. I still have financial blocks. And then we go in together. And often for people, it's like, oh, that is why, right? Sometimes it's hidden vows or whatever else. So I never, I'm not doing the fixing or the healing. You do it, but I'm helping you
Well, you're
because
sort of the guide. You're looking at the
I
evidence,
bring
you're
it
helping them
to
the guide. And you're a different kind of guide, Jess, right? I mean, in a way, you do the same thing with trauma and everything. But how your work helps people move from surviving to fully living again. What is that path like? I mean, you also are being a guide. You're telling them what you're seeing to help them to change their circumstance, right?
Yeah, certainly. And it's such an honor to be that guide for them. And it's very different from what Christine just described with the Akashic Records, right? It's more relational in the sense that I meet the person exactly where they are. And in the beginning of working with someone, it's in usually a place of such pain and agony, and something has driven them to want to change. And so, with the integral PTSD framework or method that I created, instead of just retelling trauma stories, which is what a lot of therapy does, or what a lot of people in general do, and then they just keep living that story.
Right. They
Is
reiterate it again and again and again. Right.
like that's it. If that's the story we tell ourselves, that's the story we're going to stay in. So we explore different different. One of the most important things is the subconscious, is diving deep into subconscious programming, old beliefs, old survival skills that no longer serve us, and switching those out, learning new skills. We do go through emotional wounds, but energetic imprints, which people often aren't aware of, that can involve intergenerational trauma. And,
I
you
hear
know,
a lot about intergenerational trauma. So a lot of people could be saying this and this and this has happened, and you're able to help them identify something they've never thought about, how this came to them through their generations.
and it's often very relieving for them too, because people will be saying, "Why me? Why is this happening to me?" But the very fact that it's in your DNA and that it's now presenting through you because of your family lineage, it can help to kind of soften that why me.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really does help with healing. I've done some of that. It's fantastic. I'm so glad you're with us to be able to help people with that. And I love to ask each of you, could you give us one exciting, fabulous, dramatic, marvelous story of how you've helped someone to transform and heal? To heal and transform actually is really with your work. Or yeah, how have you helped? Have you got a good one to share with people?
Sure, yeah, I
Chris,
have I have one, I could share. So I had a client that actually, recently graduated, because she just is so good, she doesn't need me anymore, which is wonderful for me. I always say to all my clients, "Hey, if you don't call me anymore, I'll be sad because I still wanna see your face," but it also means that, the smoke worked, like, what we did worked and you don't need me anymore, you're now on your own, right? So she met me, or she contacted me 2 years ago and, felt very, low, depressed, sort of, wasn't in a good space. in her life, felt trapped in a marriage, very, lots of issues with, her health due to that. And we started working together, both in, coaching, consulting, intuitive messages I would give her from her spirit team that would help her on her healing path, including the what I just described, the spiritual response therapy, sort of quantum healing that we've done. And she had tons of issues with her husband, tons of issues with her mother as well, where she never thought that this would ever, in this lifetime, definitely she wouldn't get into a better space. And we did a lot of healing and clearings around it. Lo and behold, she has no issues with her husband, or very little. She was able to arrange herself and her marriage in a way that makes her happy now, where she feels empowered and joyful. And she,
Wonderful.
towards the end, as we start, kind of coming to the end of our work together, she also was able to report that her relationship with her mother had become much, much better, and she wasn't as
Wonderful.
triggered. And everything felt more peaceful and more joyful and more, better. And this was within, this was therapy. Like, she would have done probably 20 plus years of therapy, and we did it in 2 years. So it was a real success story. And she's now out, healing and coaching people because she found her true purpose, her true joy and passion in that. And so I'm so happy for her. And hope she's going to go out and, pass it on, and, the healing will ripple out even more. So,
Right. She reminds me of how I tell people, and I often see healing as we carry a backpack on us everywhere we go with all our issues and all our problems, and we are recycling them over and over and over and over and over again. And then when you do your healing work, like with what each of you do to help people, you start throwing things out of that backpack, and all of a sudden you're lighter and lighter and lighter. And guess what? You're able to experience joy again. You're not, your world is better. You have a whole different viewpoint, which leads me to you, Jess. What's your good story?
There's a couple of really just amazing client transformation stories that I'm choosing back and forth between, but the one that is most recent and I think really just demonstrates the importance of the work and when people choose to work on themselves, what can happen. I started working with this woman, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago. I want to say 3 years ago. And it was in the capacity of a parent coach. And so for the first year and a half that we worked together, most of our work involved her as a parent and her primary identity as a parent. And so focusing on how is the child doing, his behaviors. And this was when I worked as a therapist. So it was in that capacity. It was not in my current coaching capacity. But during that time, it became very clear that this woman, she shared that she felt like an alien in this world, that, she felt like no one understood her, like that, like she was almost like she was from somewhere else. And she had all of these, she was raised very Catholic and religious, but was almost afraid of religion, but wanted to explore spirituality. And so I would provide her with information as she was open to seeking it about just like drop little tidbits in about, oh, maybe, look up. Uh, I mentioned to her being a light worker. I said, because she's a helping professional also. And I said, have you ever heard of the term light worker? And that just opened up doors for her, like where she was like, wow, maybe I'm part of something greater. And so this built and built. And then when our work ended in that capacity, she sought me out immediately afterwards and said, I can't imagine not working with you. Can we please work together? And so we started working on her, not just as a parent, but her as a whole. And from that time forward, which has been about a year and a half now, and even in the last 3 months, like the exponential changes that she's made and the realizations and the light bulb moments and ahas and spiritual awakening that's happening. And it's all because she started to believe in herself and stop thinking that she's this alien that's so different from everyone else. She's realizing that what her purpose is here. So we do a lot of exploration of that. And she's really stepping into herself. And it's been so beautiful to watch her blossom. And she also has a chronic health condition where she's been in chronic pain for years. And they're doing different practices like meditations and breathing work she's been able to relieve that and see the relationship between,
What a blessing.
yeah. And so she's like a whole new person.
It's so inspiring.
Wait,
So not only are you helping them to heal, but you're empowering them to really step into who they really are, which a lot of people do not know until they do their healing work. I am so excited because we are going to be seeing so much transformation on SoulYOUtions when people start bringing us their problems and we're able to help them. I think it's just so great. And Christine, transpersonal psychology is often called the fourth force in psychology. Please explain this. And how do you see this field different from traditional therapy? And Jess, I'm going to go right to you with this too. You started out as a therapist and now as a trauma specialist. What would you like to share about the profound relationship between grief and trauma? Because a lot of people will be coming on to SoulYOUtions who are struggling with grief and they're traumatized from it. And Christine, your whole thing is about your discipline has a lot of elements that are different than the traditional. I mean, it's a combination of psychology and spirituality and all these other issues. So how would you like to explain to our listeners
Yeah.
about what you
So I
do?
think it's important to understand here that, of course, the fourth force alludes to the fact that there are three forces before that, right? And I think most people will be very familiar with the first and the second force of psychology, which the first force is behaviorism, so conditioning, right? It's how you train your dog or how you train your kid to, not do certain things. Often we will, go back into cognitive behavioral, methods to train ourselves to do, better behaviors, better habits, and things like that. That's the first force. The second force is the psychoanalysis or psychoanalytical force. The psychoanalytical force is, most of you will know Carl Jung, is that's what he shaped, right? And it's what most people will encounter when they go and say they see a psychotherapist, they see a therapist, right? Do you go into your storylines, your childhood, all kinds of things. Why are certain things, and you sort of understand how the unconscious shaped you, right? So the first one is what we have learned and how to behave, and the second one is what how the unconscious shapes us, and those are the ones that are currently in our world the most popular ways of therapy or shaping the psyche. Now, what we're moving into is the third and the fourth force. The third force being humanistic psychology. So we're capable of growth. It's that whole growth movement of we can personal growth, the whole self growth, or the movement with the books and all of that, right? So that's the humanistic psychology. How do we grow as humans? And the third,
Which this will definitely help people to grow.
oh, for sure. So for sure. So that's why often humanistic psychology and transpersonal psychology are also lumped together because they're very close, very related, right? Now, the fourth psychology or transpersonal psychology is this idea that we are more than our personality, that we're actually expression of a larger consciousness. And that, and this is kind of alluding to what Jess had said earlier, right? A lot of people, once they're ready, once they've done the behavioralism, they're done with the first and the second force of psychology. They're kind of like, well, what now, right? This isn't like I'm stuck. I can't, grow more. And so that's when they then are ending up at the fourth force, which is, oh, I'm actually more than just a body and a mind and shaping my behavior, conditioning, and all of that. There's energy. I'm frequency. I can, sort of cut that out of my life with energy healing, with, that combination. And I believe that Jess and I are doing different aspects of that, right? So we help people see themselves as something larger beyond their egos, beyond their personalities, and beyond this small life, right? And that Shakespeare said, we are just players on a stage, right? And we kind of take the bird's eye view and say, what if you were actually a soul that has traveled through, like, eons and eons of, different dimensions and time phases. And this is just one of your life experiences. And you've actually planned it all and, and all the relationships and everything so that you can get rid of what you said, Irene, the baggage, or how I said to a client recently. I was like, it's time to get all the clutter out of the garage and put it onto the street because we don't need it anymore. We need a neat garage now. So that's kind of what transpersonal psychology or fourth force psychology is all about. And I guess where also Jess is helping people and dealing
Yeah.
with their grief and their trauma.
Just talking about grief and trauma. Trauma, when people go into grief, it's often because of trauma, or trauma can also create grief, right?
Well, it goes both ways. And I just want to say, Christine, the way that you described that was incredible because the third force is really where post-traumatic growth exists, or where people see that there is a possibility to grow beyond trauma, not just that, oh, I'm broken, or I'm grieving and I'm stuck here with this baggage and there's no way forward. It's when they start to believe and or see a path like we offer that there's post-traumatic growth that can be had, and that opens up doors to things you could never even imagine when you're in that grief or trauma or loss state. And I specialize in trauma, but I also specialize in grief and loss because I find that they're intrinsically related. You know, when you experience a trauma, you're experiencing a loss. And with loss, that's inherently associated with grief. And so we can have grief without trauma if it, but there's never trauma without grief. The link between the two of them is just such that you can't leave one out without the other.
And they both, when you're healing any of this, it leads to people finding transformation and rebirth, right? And dropping those backpacks. So since what you both do make you catalysts for a person's rebirth, please explain, because many people today are unfolding into spiritual activation and awakening. So you talk about spiritual bypassing that a lot of people do. So talk to us about spiritual bypassing and what is spiritual embodiment and why is it important to be spiritually embodied? So people who come on to SoulYOUtions with their issues or their problems, or I can't stand this guy anymore, what's wrong? And you're going to be able to help them with whatever their issues are. Why is it important to go these next steps to become spiritually embodied in your life? And I think, Jess, you had your own experience with spiritual bypassing. So what would you girls like to tell us? Or I should say, what would you lovely healers like to tell us about this?
Sure, Jess, do you want to start?
Well, sure. So spiritual bypassing is something that, how to describe it? Basically, it's when your ego is involved while you think you're growing spiritually and you're having a spiritual awakening, and maybe you come to find that you love crystals like this, and you've got a couple of you've had some profound experiences perhaps, and you think you've arrived all of a sudden, and maybe everything is love and light, and you're feeling this happiness and certainly change in your life in a spiritual fashion. However, the ego is still tethered to you. And so, what I would say is that due to the fact that I experienced sexual trauma when I was young, I was very disconnected from my body. And so, for much of the time that I was going through birth, rebirth, and spiritual awakening over and over and over again, dark night of the soul, I was still very much disembodied. And so I was intellectualizing everything. And in Buddhism, there's a concept that's called spiritual materialism. And so it's the tendency to use spiritual practices to inflate your ego rather than transcend it. Now, did I realize that I was doing this at the time? No, because one way that we try to solve trauma is by intellectualizing. And so I had just, dove into studying and studying and studying, but I was not practicing so many of the things that I was studying as much as I was studying them. And so it was when I really began to practice and inhabit my body. And that took a lot of healing work to be able to feel safe to do so. And it's something I'm still currently working on. It's a lifelong process. So that is when spiritual embodiment came to me. And that's something that I hope that we can help people understand and help them on their
Yeah, a
journey.
lot of people are going to get so much help.
I
Christine,
love.
go ahead.
Yeah, Jess, I love what you said about the intellectualizing, right? And before I get into that, I would say that spiritual bypassing, I love how you described it. I also like to add that, we bypass all the time, either with positive or with negative habits. A lot of us bypass with negative habits. It might be sex, it might be alcohol, it might be something else, right? So that we can cope with the hard, the challenging, the painful times in our lives, right? So I would say that's kind of like the first level. And then there's a level sometimes where people realize, wow, I really don't want to do that anymore. And that's when they find that third, fourth psychology, where they start growing and they read the books and then go see the teachers and all of that. And that's great. That's wonderful that we get there, right? But it becomes bypassing when now suddenly, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to go meditate, right? Or, oh, they're still there. I'm here. I'm meditating. I know what, Abraham Hicks or whoever said, right? And that's nothing there. I was there, right? I kind of went through all the stages too, right? It's when it becomes a sort of the spirituality becomes a grandiosity, right? And we think we're so much better than everybody else, and that's an issue because then we actually do more harm than not, because we're all on our journeys, right? And it's nothing to be, we'll all get to the same grade, just like we'll probably all be in like first, second, third grade, right? It's just a matter of when we get there. And the spiritual embodiment goes back to what you had said, Jess, about the intellectualizing. So that's kind of when we intellectualize everything, when we're sort of, working with it to bypass certain aspects of our personality that are still unconscious, that are still in the shadow, that are just too painful to actually look at. And that's then when we want to become spiritually embodied. But a lot of us can't do that on our own. We need a guide like yourself, Jess, or like myself. And
Yeah.
what does that mean, getting spiritually embodied? It means to really bring the energy from your head, the overthinking, and bringing it down into your heart and into your gut. I always say the heart is the switchboard of the human as a spiritual being, because from the heart, we distribute all of our energy downward, right? So that we can be grounded, because we are still walking on this planet. We still have to, make our rent and put food on the table for our kids and all of that, right? It's not about up and leaving this, right? It's about living this fully with consciousness and using
I liken it, Christine. Would you say it's like walking the talk?
it's walking the
Like a
talk.
lot of people
Absolutely.
intellectualize it, but to me, it also feels like judgment a lot of times, because I've achieved this and this and this, so I'm better than the other people because I'm spiritually more in the know. When the truth is, we're all on our journey and we all need compassion and we all need empathy and we're all part of a collective.
I love that. I love that. And I love that Jess is, saying that she's going through, I've gone through my own journey. None of us, I would say, and I can only speak for myself, but none of us think that, we know it all. We are very authentic and we walk our talk, and we've been there, right? Like, we are doing our work from a place of doing our own work. And we're all still evolving, right? Just because we're here, this is helping us evolve,
Right.
doing this work. So, and I guess that's what being spiritually embodied is all about. It's, by all means, if you like to wear crystals, absolutely do. But just because you wear crystals doesn't make you any better than somebody else. It's when you can actually be in your body and walk the talk and live from this heart-centered place,
That's
and
beautiful.
distribute your energy from that place.
Well, I can't think of a better way. What were you going to say, Jess?
I was gonna say, I think that's so beautifully put, Christine. And one of my favorite teachers is Alan Watts, and he says, and he laughs with such a jovial laugh that's contagious. He says, "If you ever think you've arrived, ha ha ha, think again." And so that's what,
Absolutely.
at each stage of arriving, I realized that there's only more for me to learn at that stage. And it's such a beautiful thing. Instead of being like, "Oh, I'm here. Here I am." So, like you said, Irene, we're all on our journeys here.
We're on our journey. So, everyone listening, you could accept this as an invitation to get help on your journey, because we are going to have incredible people to help you with your journey on SoulYOUtions. And not just one person, like going to a therapist. You're going to have a panel of very knowledgeable people who are all coming through and helping you from their different disciplines. But it's so amazing how, with all the different disciplines that they all come to the same conclusions usually also. So they're so helpful. So with that said, girls, why should people listening to us tonight tune in and want to register for SoulYOUtions, helping humanity heal? And we are going to have all this information in the show notes. We're going to have a registration form. We're hoping to see all of you there. And with our full hearts, we want to answer your questions and help you in your mind. What is really exciting and different about SoulYOUtions for people to want to tune in and become a part of this?
Well, as you mentioned, Irene, I mean, you're receiving 5 people at a time in different sessions, right? And one will be alternating of different perspectives on the same thing. So if you're invested in your growth, even just halfway, and you want to get out of the darkness and you want to really, get a grip on your life, then you have 5 different angles in doing that, right? And you could come back 5 different times or more and get even more angles to really understand reality with a capital R at its best. And so why wouldn't anybody want to come, right? Like, I mean, so absolutely come see. They're all fantastic human beings. They're all, here to help you heal. And, we're here. We all do this from our heart and our soul. This is our mission. This is why we're placed on this earth for. And we're here to, hold space, like Jess said, hold space, meet you where you're at, and give you a platform so that you can not just ask your questions, but heal.
And
Jess,
people are
take it
going to
away.
Jess, and people are going to become more conscious. It's going to help them to evolve to that next stage, right?
It's been fun here tonight with Christine, but when you guys or everyone sees us with the full panel and how much fun that is, it's been so exciting being involved in it. I can't wait for it to start and for us to get to start doing the work with folks. And one of the things that I think will be most rewarding and unexpected is that whether you come to SoulYOUtions as a question seeker, meaning one of our live featured guests asking a question of the panel, or just as an audience member, or even just if you wind up watching us on YouTube, some of your questions will be answered. And I've had this happen to me. It's like almost like you needed that question answered at that time, and this person asked it, and then it brought such tremendous insight into your life. And so even if you're too shy to come as a question seeker to be a live featured guest, there's still so much to be gained and benefited from being in the community, being in the space, the quantum healing, that Christine will be gifting us with in each event as well.
Yeah, you just show up and you get a healing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that much.
There.
And then
you don't do anything.
And then you get your question answered. And then you also get the benefit of listening to other people and their questions and the answers, which I have found that when I'm in a group setting, I often learn more from the questions other people are asking and the answers they're getting than from, okay, thank you for the help with that. That gives me some insight into my thing. But what that woman is going through and the solution for her is amazing. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It also helps you know that you're not alone.
yeah,
Right.
That other people are experiencing similar things.
To piggyback off of both of you, it helps us understand that our suffering, in parentheses, is universal. We're all going through the same thing, right? Often we feel so alone in what we're going through, especially in these times. And to just see that there's tons of other people there going through the same thing. There's a community there for you, that you're not alone, and that, there's essentially we're all, seeing each other in each other. So, yeah.
Which is so beautiful. And we'll all be able to, and everybody's going to be able to connect with each other. We're going to have a regular community. There'll be a Facebook presence. This will not stop just with these events. So it's very exciting. It's just going to be wonderful. And I hope everyone listening is going to want to check it out. So as we conclude, please scroll down to your show notes and and click onto the registration page, click into what everything else is about. Our first event will be September 30th. And I want to encourage, speaking of community, I want to encourage everyone. We have one more big podcast interview coming up with the whole panel. So you get to get the whole shebang, the whole wonderful group of all these amazing, gifted, talented people who have developed different specialties and modalities and spend their lives as light workers, helping people to heal and transform. So this is your moment, everyone, to step into something extraordinary. It's going to be for 2 Wednesday evenings a month. And if you are longing for support, insight, and a community that I can, from my heart, say truly cares and understands the language of your soul, this is where you belong. So use this registration link to sign up for our very first show. Become part of our community that will grow together, heal together, and rise together. Many blessings, everyone. Heartfelt. And see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Grief and Rebirth. Remember, you can dive deeper into everything we've discussed by checking out the show notes and all past episodes at griefandrebirth.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel at Healing from Grief and never miss a video. For those of you listening, you'll find links to my 2 books, Good to the Last Drop and They Serve Bagels in Heaven, in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see those books listed right above, so don't miss out. And here comes a special treat. If you sign up for Audible as a first-time user using my link, which you can find in the show notes, you can get They Serve Bagels in Heaven for free. And finally, people often ask me what I read, what I use, and what I recommend for healing and self-care. So I've carefully curated a compilation of those items to share with you. You can head over to www.amazon.com/shop/Irene S. Weinberg to check them out. And to my cherished Grief and Rebirth podcast fans, stay tuned and see you again soon.